Okay, so this is going to be a video about the quadratic formula. And what the quadratic formula does is it allows you to use any quadratic function that's in standard form. And as long as you know a, b, and c, then you'll be able to figure out the roots of this quadratic function. In this case, the roots would be when the y is equal to 0, so that's why I have this quadratic equation equal to 0 here. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to solve this equation for x. Alright, so the first thing we're going to want to do is put all the x's on one side. So what I'm going to do is get rid of this c, so I'm going to subtract c from both sides. This c cancels here, and you end up with ax squared plus bx is equal to negative c. From here, what I'm going to do is divide both sides by a, just to cancel out this a term, so it makes it so it's easier to complete the square. So I'm going to divide this by a, this by a, and this by a over here. This way I'm dividing both sides by a. Here the a is going to cancel, and you're going to end up with x squared plus b over a times x is equal to negative c over a. From here, I'm going to complete the square. That way I can take the square root of both sides. So what I'm going to need to do for this b term, this b over a right here, is I'm going to divide it by 2. So you'll end up with b over 2 times a, and then I'm going to square it in order to get that completing the square. Now since I added this to this side of the equation, I'm going to have to also add it over here. From here I have a perfect square. So I'm looking for a number that, the two numbers that multiply to get this and add to get this. So what that would be the b over 2a. So I'm going to write x plus b over 2a squared is equal to... What I'm going to do here is simplify both of these to make sure they have the same denominator, a common denominator, so I can add them together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to simplify this to be negative c over a plus, and then I'm actually going to square the top and the bottom. So you end up with b squared over 4a squared. Okay? From here, I'm going to take the square root of both sides. Make sure you use the square root property, so you have a plus and a minus here, and you end up with x plus b over 2a is equal to plus or minus. Okay, so now I'm going to make these common denominators, just to simplify this a bit. The greatest common denominator between these would be 4a squared. So what I'm going to do is multiply both the top and the bottom here by 4a. So you're going to end up with negative 4ac divided by, and then I'm going to multiply the bottom by 4a, and you'll end up with 4a squared. So now the denominators will match, like so, and I still have the square root of all this. Okay, so it's getting a little crazy, but we're almost done. Okay, next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to subtract off the b over 2a from both sides. So I'm going to subtract off the b over 2a, so that cancels. And then you end up with x is equal to, I'm going to put this negative b over 2a in front, plus or minus. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is combine these two, so then I end up having the square root of, and I'm going to put the b squared in front here, so it's going to say b squared minus 4ac all over 4a squared. So the square root of all of this right here. What I'm going to lastly do is simplify this a bit just so it's easier to do some calculations. So you're going to have negative b over 2a plus or minus. What I can do here is I can take the square root of the top number, so that's what I'm going to do, this b squared minus 4ac. And if I take the square root of the bottom, it ends up being 2a, because the square root of 4a squared is 2a. And then if you notice, both of these have the common denominator, so what I'm going to do is simplify this. So now x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And this is how you derive the quadratic formula. So as long as you know the a, b, and c of a quadratic formula in standard form, as you can see we have a, these b's right here, another a here, and a c. As long as we know the a, b, and c, you'll be able to figure out the roots for x. And that's the whole reason why we have the quadratic formula. So if you have any questions about this, let me know.